Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the RFK Refugees podcast. It's your host, John, here with Brian. Brian, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, John. How are you?
I can't complain. I am, of course, quasi-sick. We are recording this on Tuesday night instead of our normal Monday night, and we are recording this instead of doing our live show for the same reason. Kind of didn't want to do it. Did it at a weird time. So, as I will uphold the traditions, I am a traditionalist, and Ted is not here, so I'm going to fulfill the Ted role. Brian, how was your weekend?
My weekend was full of laundry, but it was good. Today's actually my highlight. I got to go to the zoo or the farm and the aquarium. It was a good day. I didn't have to work. So
I was going to say, clearly we're not working. That's good. That's good. That's a good move.
How about you, John? How was your weekend?
It was my child's 4th birthday party this weekend, which was awesome. There was a bounce house. There was a singing Rapunzel, and lots of family and friends and her classmates. And then I directly after that, went to another birthday party, which is where I am certain that I got sick. And then after that, I went to a baseball game and sat in the rain, which is also a possibility of when I got sick. And then here I am. So yeah, pretty good weekend. I can't complain. We had an uneven weekend of soccer, I think you'd have to say. It was sort of, we're never going to have, I think it so far has happened once where all the teams have won. We've had like 1 6-point weekend. So
yeah,
we can't rely on that, I guess. Before we get into the show, we have a couple new Patreons. I never know if people want their names right or not, so I'm going to not, but thank you for doing that. If you want to join us and get extra episodes early, get all of the written content, which I will apologize. We were a little slacking on this week because Deb was out of town and I was busy with work. You get all that first if you join our Patreon, patreon.com/RFKRefugees. All right, let's get into the games. Do we want to start DC United or do we want to do Spirit?
Let's start with DC. I know it's a little chronologically out of order, but I like it as is tradition.
Sure, let's do that. All right, so DC United, there were, I would say, some surprises from the lineup perspective. We had Steve Birnbaum making he was on the bench last game but didn't feature. This was his first opportunity to actually play. You had a bench including him and Ted Kudipietro returning from injury. Once again, Garrison Tubbs play. I would love, by the way, just a quick digression, Garrison Tubbs should really be loaned aloud. I really don't know what we're doing here, other than the fact that we have to have at least 5 players on the bench. I think that's mostly what it is. That's mostly. It is clearly not about their development. That's not what's happening here.
Yeah.
We also don't know if we talked about it in the midweek. Probably didn't. Luis Zamudio, maybe we did, is on loan to Colorado Springs for the rest of the year. Now that means Tyler Miller is back as the backup, because that is what is transpired from play on the field. And then also Jacob Murrell started. That's probably something notable.
And then the 3 at the back.
3 at the back, sort of. We had McVeigh, Peltola, and Bartlett in the back with Dájome and Herrera as the wings.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. Footmob didn't seem to like it so much. I really liked Peltola back there. I thought he was pretty handy. So Jacob Murrell coming off of last game, he had a great game and didn't score, if I'm recalling correctly. Remind me of the history. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So
we
had conversations on the show saying, like, we wanted him to show up, and he was going for goal. He was trying stuff. He was trying he tried a bike. He was rewarded for that with another start. We had two up front. I like the fact that we see a little versatility on our formations, even with. This is basically our full complement. We didn't have anybody missing for injury or not other than the normal or suspension. This was just what he wanted to do against this particular club. So Jacob Murrell got another start. I think that's promising. He had two good games in a row for the young player out of Georgetown. Trying to think how we should probably walk through this. Obviously, this is a team that has been a struggle for DC United over time. I'm seeing right now, Philly have not lost to DC United in their last 5 meetings. They're 4 wins, 1 draw. So way to go. We broke the streak and got a draw, reverting the situation. But let's get started. So there's a player that you may know. So my previous player that I do not like. There's been a lot. There's not. We haven't been short of those, but Nigel Roberto is now playing in the UAE, so I don't have to talk about him anymore. But Christian Dájome is a player that I have had real questions about his value for dollar and like where he fits on the field and what he's supposed to be doing. So I've talked about him a lot. I'm sure Ted has too. He listened to the show. He was hyping himself up before the game. He was like, "I'm going to listen to this stupid podcast. They're going to talk about how I can't score and I have no finishing skills at all." And then I'll show them. So what happened instead? We had probably the prettiest goal of DC United's season, which I think Matt Doyle was drooling over it on Twitter. But Stroud plays the ball into Herrera. Herrera chips the ball over a defender to Mateusz Klich, who passes back to Stroud. Stroud crosses it across the 6 on the ground. It squirts out, and Dájome blasts it into the roof of the net and gets a quick 1-0 lead in the 9th minute. Did you also feel like sort of... I felt sheepish when I saw it. I was like, oh, well, I'm sure he won't do it again. I'm not wrong. He just did a good thing once.
I had a lot of, like, in the moment, had a lot of questions about who really buried that.
Couldn't have been him, obviously.
Right. With you could have put all of the names of the players on this team in a hat, and you said, who's going to absolutely destroy it into the back of the net off of a loose ball inside the box? Dájome would have been like the last name I put out of that. I was like, well, listen, Bono's got a foot on him. Maybe he's up there. But as you mentioned, beautiful team goal. There are a lot of times balls that end up like that end up there with a lot of luck. I don't think you can say that off of this goal. And I think that you saw a lot of good stuff on the ball this game, even if it didn't play out in the end product in the final score line. But a really great goal. It certainly seems like Dájome, given the situation on our team, benefits us better as a left back than he did as a forward. Certainly, I think Murrell is giving us something different up top. And maybe it's working out better for him at this stage in his career as well.
Yeah. His speed is still a benefit there, and he's not really embarrassed himself too much defensively. And we need, to your point, that is a position of major need. So we gotta take him where we can get him. Very shortly after that, in the 33rd minute, we had a Wayne Rooney-esque era goal. Alex Bono hits the ball about 70 yards down the field. Benteke nods it on to Stroud. Stroud squares it, and Murrell scores from outside the 18. Another sort of multi-link play here that happened. Murrell gets his first goal as a DC United player, gets to celebrate in front of the fans. 2-0 lead against the Union early here in the game. Confidence, or how are we going to blow this? What was the thought you were?
I think confidence. Another good teamwork goal. A lot more reminiscent of how we got things last season, just like boot it down the field to Benteke. But Murrell has to do a good amount once he gets the ball. Takes a good first touch, gets around the defender, hits a really powerful shot with his left foot, and does a good job burying it. And Stroud gets his second assist on the game. I love this man. I miss Julian Gressel so much less this season than I did last season because of Jared Stroud.
Yeah.
And I think that it's very clear how much we missed that that type of outside threat last season with what we're seeing from Jared Stroud this season.
Yep. He's like a discount Gressel. Although Gressel's goals, in this game he only attempted 3 crosses and only completed 1. So it wasn't necessarily like he was whipping balls in, but he was finding players. He was on the ground. He was doing the thing. Just just a ridiculous, just a bargain of a player. He was also the man of the match to Foot Mob. So, and I think most people would have said that. We'll talk about the other goal here in the first half. You and I talked about this as we prepared for the show about how annoying this goal was, both from the goal scorer and how it happened. Set piece in the 42nd minute. This was a bit of a what do you call it? This is like obviously a practice set piece. This was a play that they were going to run.
Yes.
Bedoya runs across the wall. He gets played in to the near post. Murrell's about a step behind. He is goal side, so that's not the problem. But Bedoya is able to finish it, really kind of robbing the momentum into halftime. I don't have the XG plot in front of me, but let's see. Do I have it here? Yeah. So the momentum was firmly on DC United's side before the goal, and then it stayed with the Union for the rest of the half after the goal. But not a great goal. Not a great goal to concede. Kind of annoying more than anything else against a team that is pretty great on their any given week. I don't have much more to take away from that goal other than that sucked.
Yeah, it's like you said, obviously like something off the training ground, executed perfectly, right? Like, that wasn't a just that little flick outside of the foot, right over Bono. I said maybe Murrell's a half step behind, but not a lot that could have been done there once the ball was hit. So
I want to call out a couple players in the first half and really overall in the performance. Jackson Hopkins, 74 minutes in the 6. I just did not see. I thought he played well. The stats do not favor him here. He had a 6.7 rating, 89% passing, no real threat going forward, but that's not what he's being asked to do. 40 touches, 7 passes into the final third, 5 recoveries. I don't know. I mean, 71% on ground duels. I don't understand why he's getting hosed here on I don't know. 6.7 is not fantastic.
Yeah, I guess that's I think that the calculation, and when you're a defensive midfielder and you don't win a game and you give up 2 goals, I think that he's not as good as Peltola in the role that he's being asked to play there. But I don't have another person to slot into the back 3 right now. And I think that his performance was good enough to allow Stroud and Click to get forward in a way that was really healthy. And I think those are 2 both highlight players from an attacking front. So, I still feel like that maybe that like 3+1 diamond there gave us enough going forward. So.
Do you think the 3-man back line was only about the opponent, or also trying to figure out what we're going to do with Steve when he comes back, which is going to be probably next week, I would bet, after playing 16?
Maybe a little bit of both. I think I don't think that any of McVeigh, Bartlett, or Birnbaum are like, neither one of them is going to play opposite Herrera in a 4-back system. They just don't have the speed to play that way. So however, they make up 3 of your 4 best defenders, right? And Steve being probably not the quickest of the 3. If he were to play that role that Peltola played in, Peltola moves up to where Hopkins is. I could see that being a very effective option for this team.
And I think that's the move. I think you're right.
Mm-hmm. When we feel like we need to set up more defensively, right? And I think that too, you mentioned, Wayne Rooney. I think the difference in, where sometimes it felt like we were just sort of drawing names out of a hat. This does feel like a more purposeful play against a team that we would have expected to probably be more of an attacking threat than they were.
Yep. I'm looking now. This is completely unscientific. FootMob had 47% likely to win for DC United against the Union, which is bananas. That was clearly a bunch of homers smashing that button in the app.
Yeah.
I just noticed your Williamsburg winery glass too. Big respect. I have a few of those in my cabinet too. So we get to halftime, 2-1 lead. Also want to call out again Aaron Herrera all throughout the game. We've already talked about him in the course of the goals. He is. So I have a question here from somebody in the Discord that is relevant to him, and the answer is yes. This is from DC Ulysses. Do you think Herrera is a top 3 or 4 player on the team? In so much so, yes. He's third in the league in big chances created. He is so good. He is a threat in all facets. I think he is the third best player on this team behind the 2 DPs that are obviously getting the attention. But anyway, I just want to call him out. Every time he plays, he's one of the best players in the field. It never changes.
Mm-hmm.
Second half, there was some chaos here. There was the crossbar hitting from Carranza. There was Alex Bono having to come up with some saves, almost getting chipped. But in the 79th minute, Jack McGlynn, whose picture makes him look like a Irish immigrant from the 1920s on FootMob, scores an unbeatable goal. What do I have written down here? Unstoppable is all I have written here. The funniest thing about that play is the stats on it say 0.01 xg from the shot, 0.7 xgot. So only 70% are you likely to score that shot where it was on goal. I think that's what the stat was saying, right?
You said 0.7
xgot.
Okay.
Expected goals on target from that distance. I don't know. Anyway, regardless of what the stat means, clearly I maybe misunderstand the stat. It was a
well, so I would say it's actually the opposite, right? So it's 0.01 from where
that's
you
how
take
much
the
likely
shot,
you think, right?
From where you take the shot, 1% of the time you score. When you take the shot from there and it's on target, 70% of the time you score. So to me, that says very low likelihood shot, but the fact that he got that off and got it on target, to your point, unbeatable at that point. Like 70% of the time that scores. The other 30% of the time it hits the crossbar, right?
Right.
There's the position your keeper. You're not going to get all the way across your goal to block a shot that's curling from right to left into the top left corner of your goal. So,
yeah, and then after that, the United sort of dump on some substitutes that are all attacking in nature. Or I think, so that goal was scored in the 79th. Steve Birnbaum, who we mentioned, comes on the 74th. Not at fault. Pirani comes on and Fletcher comes on the 86th minute, sort of really saying that we're going for a goal here at home, which we should. Clearly, there's the specter of the Orlando game where you're like, we just also don't give this up, because if you do that, that's even worse.
right.
But they went for it, and we're not able to. I'm trying to remember if there was any really big chances in the end. I don't really think that there were.
I don't think so. The middle 20 minutes of the second half, right up into that goal, and then I don't think DC really had the momentum to get back after that, and it just kind of stayed flat there till the end.
So what do we think? I'm trying to remember what I said as far as expectations of this game. I don't believe I certainly was not expecting to get a win over Philly. I think Ted was more confident over Philly than I was. I think a draw against Philly at home is fine. Probably, not great, but fine. Certainly satisfactory, considering the next games we are playing are Atlanta away and Red Bulls home. We'll see how that goes. Red Bulls is going to be a challenge based on the way they're playing, though they did get completely just embarrassed by Inter Miami last week, 6-2. So who knows how that goes?
Which is the game we have right after Red Bull. So
Right. So get these points where you can.
Yeah. Tough stretch coming up before some easier things at the end of the month.
I think Atlanta's sitting on 12 points out of 10. It's not necessarily a must win, but I think if you can get points down there, if you can get another draw, if you can get 2 from those last 2 games, and know that Red Bulls and Inter is just going to be try to hold on to your ankles and get through it, and do your best. I think that's fine for where this team is. The team sits 9th last if the season ended today, and it very much doesn't. We would make it into the playoff in the play-in game, but I think everybody keeps asking. I think a lot of the questions have been like, are you where you thought we'd be? And we are.
Okay.
I think we are. We're right in the middle of the table. We are. I think we're in the placement. We are where we thought we are. I think in the progress on the attacking play level and the effort and I think we're ahead of schedule there. I think there is still some naivete. I think there's still some discipline that needs to be instilled over time. That I think happens when you're basically rebuilding a team as best you can, and also putting young players in positions where they're playing major minutes. I'm not upset. I think if you're upset, you had your expectations were too high at any point. I think that's really just how I feel about it.
Yep. So with that in mind, they're really packing them in this month before the next interlull. So it's 6 games in the next month between now and June 1st. So let me run this down, and you tell me how many points DC is going to get out of the next 6 games. So
Yep.
Atlanta away.
1.
Red Bulls at home.
1. None.
Away to Inter Miami.
None. 0. Negative.
Home versus Chicago.
3. Better.
Away at Montreal.
1. We don't really do well away at Montreal, even though they just fired their GM and they're a bit of a mess.
And home against Toronto.
That's tough. Toronto's got 19 points from 11. Bernadeschi scored a ridiculous goal this week. They're a different team than the one that we normally come into. So you said that's a home or away?
That's at home.
I'm going to say 1 point. So that if we tally that up, that's 1, 2, 5, 7.
7.
7 from 21.
7
Not great.
from 21.
So that puts us
feel great.
That puts us at 21 points. Yeah, that'll knock us. I mean, the thing is that we're playing teams below us. So Atlanta's below us, Montreal's below us, the Fire are below us. So maybe I need to be more aggressive on that Montreal game away. Maybe if we can get to 3 there.
I actually think that the how we play the last 3 games of that. So home to Chicago, 4 days later away at Montreal, up in Canada, and then was it 3 days after that back home against Toronto.
We don't have the roster for this, man. This is not good.
I know. And so this is before the summer transfer window opens. I think it would say a lot about this team if we can get 7 points just from those games, like 2 wins and a tie out of those 3, do something against Atlanta, make that 8 points, maybe, 10 if we're lucky, versus just getting 7 out of a 6-game stretch. That would certainly give us a better standing heading into a summer transfer window where you would expect this team to be to find a way to be active.
I think you're going to see Tyler Miller play in some of these games. I think you're going to see Christian Benteke have to rest at some point in this game. He's typically a 90-minute player, and he's also been on Iron Man. Like he was out like 2 games early this year.
Yep.
But traditionally he plays 90 minutes every game. And if you want to have him continue to play at the level he is, you're going to have to figure a way to give him a blow somewhere in here. I don't know when you do it. Probably, I would say you just completely tank in her.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, I don't know. You mentioned Tyler Miller. I'm not sure that this is the stretch where he would play maybe home against Chicago,
That was my thinking.
but if you like, let's say you go through the next 3 games and you get 0 points, you're gonna, or
Probably
maybe
not.
that's a reason to maybe that's a
Right.
reason to start a
Yeah.
guy. Um,
Maybe so.
but I also feel like Bono hasn't given us any reason to pull him off the field, right? Like
Nope.
I can't look back at a game and say like, oh man, having Bono in there, really hurt us.
Solely just as giving him a blow. I think even keepers, playing 6 games, 7 games in a month and a day is kind of a lot.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Don't we? Are we going to play some strange, weird thing in July where against like an international team that nobody's heard of? That seems like when Tyler Miller might make the field next.
Man, that's rough. The problem is that he hasn't played at all since his injury. Then it's
Right.
like you don't send him down allowed and get some minutes, which again I always think you should do, but that's not the way things work anymore.
Nope.
2 more questions we had real quick. If you could have peak Nahar or current Herrera, who would you pick? That's a challenging question.
Wait. Peak
Nahar.
DC United Nahar
Mm-hmm.
or
Yes.
first time or second time?
First time.
Mm,
That's hard. It's a hard question.
right. So
First time he's a winger, and then a right back at the very end.
right.
But then he also from there went to go play in Champions League and almost got signed by Arsenal. So he was doing pretty good. And Aaron
Yeah.
Herrera is not being scouted to
Not
play
there.
for Arsenal
No,
at the moment.
No. So like, if peak, yeah, I mean Nahar a decade and a half ago, yeah,
Right. Yeah,
right.
I think me too.
But if you look at, I mean, how many were we? 11 games in. Nahar wouldn't have made it 11 games in the last couple of years at DC.
No.
So
He's not playing very much, by the way, for Olympia. I don't know if he's been injured. He's not been playing very much. So I keep an eye on those things.
Yep.
Last question we have, harder question to answer probably. What percentage of the blame for blowing leads does Lassane have? Is it a complete pass because of roster deficiencies? I think the roster deficiencies do not help. I think it challenges your substitution patterns. It doesn't allow you to rotate. You have no left back. You're just sort of making do really from that side and that perspective.
Yep.
I think it's tough because you giving up points from winning positions is about a lot of things. It's about mentality. It's about focus. It's about tactics. It's about adjusting, but it is also about being able to hold on to the game with substitutions that you can make to sort of solidify things. I don't know. I don't give him. I give him 20% of the blame, 25%.
Yeah.
What do you give him?
Yeah. I don't think it's fully there. I think there's we're 11 games in, with probably not the roster that he expected to have, and the player availability that he expected to have, and probably some changes to the system that they would have worked on in the off season. And I think holding on to leads is really about how well everybody understands and plays within the system. And I think, this is a game where, they tried, frankly, a new system, a new style of play. And so maybe I'm less surprised that they came behind. And I also feel like, I would say that more if we gave up the lead because of defensive mistakes. But in this game in particular, and I think Ted in our chat was like, I feel better about how this game went as a draw and how the team played than I did about the win that we had the previous week. And I kind of feel that way too. I think you and I were talking a little bit this game, sort of like two Galazzos from Philly, and they're back in the game. You take one of those, like highlight of the season, goals away, and it's a very different game. I feel like DC had a lot of this game, and I think that I think they're playing well in the system. So, um, uh, yeah, I think 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. Frankly, I give Troy maybe more credit for getting a lead in the first place with what he's got, and than I do take away from him um, uh, in these sort of performances.
Let's switch gears to the Washington Spirit, the third in the table. Washington Spirit. They had 2 games this week. Sorry we didn't get again. I'm hands up. Should have got my stuff together. But we saw a 4-2 victory on the road to the Red Stars, and a 2-1 loss on the road to Portland. A game that I said was for sure to go badly because Portland was doing too poorly at the beginning of the season for it to be remotely possible, and now they were, I believe, in like last week they might have been in 7th, and now they are in 4th. Actually, they may have been even lower than that. Let's go back to the Red Stars game. I think that's the more fun thing to talk about. There was a question, I think, about what they were going to do with rosters for these 2 games on the road. This was the game clearly that Adrian Gonzalez went for it fully, put out his entirely first choice 11, and it showed almost immediately. See, also, the Spirit are going to win if they don't concede a goal in the first 5-10 minutes. Like, that's always a good sign. If they do that, it's gonna be rough. So let's talk through the games here. 28th minute. Finally, Trinity Rodman gets off the schneid, gets her first goal of the season. Croy Bethune plays her through. She hits it off the post and in, far post. Wasn't an easy goal, but she finally finished. I know that was a huge weight off her back. She's been killing herself to score, so she's finally done that.
Yep.
Which is good because she is the fulcrum. Her and Croy are the really what makes this team go. So I know she's wanted to score.
Absolutely.
Next goal is 2 minutes later. Trinity this time plays provider to Sar. She's on the right hand side. Trinity plays it into Sar. She scores from outside the 18 in the top upper 90. I think that was her 3rd goal of the year. How many goals was that for this season? Quickly. 3 goals. Yep, 3rd goal of the year. She's a very kind of divisive player among the Spirit fan base. Her playing there continues to put Ashley Hatch out of position. Ashley Hatch is continuing to have a pretty non-effectual season due to that. And then Sar often misses chances. She has not a great first touch, but now she is starting to find her goal-scoring boots, and obviously Adrian Gonzalez likes her and wants to play her. So there she is, and there she scored. Tough to gripe too much when you're scoring pretty much every game over this little span here. I think the Spirit are, again, we have no access to the XG race map on FootMob. It's other places, but
let me see if I can find it because I feel like this is one of those early season DC games where they had like an XG of 7 or something.
Also, this game played in front of 2,999 people out in Bridgeview. Bit of a bummer there. Chicago can't figure it out. They need one of their teams to be good, and that's not happening. Schlegel scores in the 79th minute. Trying to remember how that one went. That was a defensive breakdown in the box. At that point, it was 2-1. I don't think there was not a lot of concern, I think, with that goal. It was just a bit of I think that Gabby Carl might have been at play there for the mess up. And then Brittany Ratcliffe took the game over. She came on in the 75th minute, and she scored in the 83rd and 86th minute. Both of these goals, the first one is the one that got most of the attention. Croy Bethune plays her in from probably 60 yards away from goal. I think this was was this the outside of the boot pass that she did? I'm not sure. She just sliced the Chicago defense. Brittany Ratcliffe takes the ball in on the near post. She looks sort of like she's going to shoot far post. She does not. She crushes the ball to the near post, upper 90. Goalkeeper has nothing to do about it. Also kind of moves a little bit. She kind of put the knuckleball action on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 minutes later, Croy Bethune gets her third assist of the game. Plays her in inside the box. She slots it home, and then that's on. Then we of course 90th plus 2 was a situation where Aubrey got screened. She did not get a good push off get a good push to save it. I mean, this was a game where this is a team they should beat. They had their full choice roster. They were not on short rest, and they did what they were supposed to do. I think neither of those goals they should have really conceded. They'll probably be upset. I didn't listen to the post-game conference. I'm sure they were upset about it because they weren't kind of just, fluky breakdowns. But again, that's who should have won. That's who did win. I'm trying to look in the past. Ironically, the last time these two teams played, Chicago beat them 2-0, and before that, the last 2 times before that were draws. So they had their number there for a bit, but they were just too much. They could not overcome. Did you ever find the XG map for it?
I did, and I just messaged it to you, John, because I don't think that you and I would have guessed that this team had a cumulative XG of 0.76 and 4 goals. Yeah.
That's bananas. I mean,
right.
Obviously the Ratcliffe goal, I guess, do they score XG based on where the passes are coming from? Like how...
Maybe.
Like, I'm looking at this. This is a surprise. Huh.
The giant jump in the Red Stars.
For that 2-1.
Yeah. That does not surprise me. With Chicago's first goal. That's a very surprising with maybe how that felt to the eye versus what it shows on paper.
Yep. Then only how many days later? Not very many days later. All right, so that game was that Wednesday game? That was a Wednesday night, and then we had a Saturday evening, a Spirit After Dark situation. This is a game where the lineup got really heavily rotated. You had Ratcliffe starting for Hatch. You had Mateer starting for Hal Hirschfeld. You had Kate Wiesner starting for Casey
Kruger.
Sorry, thank you. Casey Kruger of the best 11 for the year or for the month so far. And I think that was all of the changes. Yeah, that was all the changes.
Those were the only changes.
It did not start well. Again, we've talked about before about what happens when this team gives up a goal early. In the 5th minute, I would say we looked at this beforehand. Gabby Carl and Andy Sullivan combined to get blasted past on the right side. Sinclair plays the ball to Coffey, and Paige is slow to get out and close her down, and she scores from pretty far out. Not a great goal to give up. Not as bad as the second goal they give up very shortly after, but not a goal they want to give up. You had only Paige. We'll see. Paige is the eye test meets. So Aubrey Kingsbury gets the 5.6 for giving up those goals. I think that seems somewhat harsh. The second goal was really kind of on her, but the first goal was, I don't know how much she could have done. But Paige's stats are not great. No accurate crosses or long balls. No successful dribbles. 1 for 3 in ground duels, lost 3 duels, just kind of dispossessed. Not great. Not a great match for her. She's sort of struggling to find her place in this team so far. Hal Hirschfeld will be put back into the roster quickly, one assumes. Let's talk about that goal that sucked very shortly after. Set piece off of a corner. Obazi nodded on the corner. Andy does not follow. Aubrey does not bust off of her line, and Christine Sinclair gets an opportunity to steer the ball into the net to take a 2-0 lead there early in the first half. I don't know what you say there. It was just not Adrian Gonzalez. Probably blood pressure went up a lot for that goal.
To give that up. Not to a team not on the same page in how to approach a set piece there. Like you said, Andy sort of caught flat-footed, but both players caught flat-footed with that flick on. I think something that had Aubrey been off her line, she could have taken easily. Had Andy stayed in step with the defender, would have been harder. Maybe she would have had it over. But essentially, Sinclair's free on goal and puts it in.
I'm looking at Trinity's stats, who was the player of the match for the Spirit in a loss. She had 80 touches. She was 66% on her passes. She had 4 chances created, 4 touches in the opposition box, 7 passes into the final third. She won 17 duels. She lost 12. She was being confronted frequently to have that many duel opportunities in her position. 11 recoveries, 9 defensive actions. Don't get tired of saying how good she is.
No,
she is fully irreplaceable, and a bit of a unique player too. A two-way player that works every single game, creates chances every single game, and now finally after Chicago can score too. Tara McKeown also exits this game somewhat smelling like a daisy. This has been a pattern. When the Spirit play poorly and they lose, Tara McKeown is like one of the only green numbers in FootMob. Her stats always tend to somehow always seem to get through it. 95 touches, 6 passes in the final third, 50% on her long balls, won all of her ground duels, won a third of her aerial duels, and had 15 recoveries. So again, Mark Parsons, respect to the man who had it right there. But one thing, and in consolation, Lena Solano scores her. I think that's got to be her, maybe not first goal of her Spirit career, second goal of her Spirit career. She scored in, I think it was the Challenge Cup. Not certain here, but anyway, scores off of a Trinity Rodman cross. That's her assist that she got. What do we have to think about a game where they go on the road to a place they typically lose and then rotate their lineup pretty heavily and then lose? What do we? Any major takeaways?
No. I mean, I maybe not a game that you expect them to win. I do not I don't know the stat for like goals conceded in the first 10 minutes of a game, but I'm pretty sure that the Spirit are leading that stat.
Gotta be close.
And they don't seem to be able to recover in those sort of scenarios. I think they, this is a team that seems to, you talked about Tara being green when the team loses. When they play well as a team, they seem to play really well. When the team isn't clicking and we rely on like individual brilliance, that doesn't seem to play out for this team in the way that maybe it would in the world. I was looking at the passing network, and you mentioned Brittany Ratcliffe coming in for Ashley Hatch. There are no passing lines that go to Brittany Ratcliffe. Nothing came through there.
She is a super sub. It is looking very clearly like she is much more of an impactful running at tired legs than she is from the start against Portland on the road. I mean, but again, there was a lot of changes otherwise in the midfield.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think that there's like I don't think we learned anything positive. I don't think that there's a lot to take away from this game. Except
when do you think the last time the Spirit beat the Thorns was? Take a guess.
It's been a while. I'm assuming.
2019. May 18th, 2019 was the last time they won.
2019. Wow.
So they have played them since then. They have played them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times plus this last time. Nope, 7, 8, 9 times. They played them 9 times before this
9
one.
times. Okay.
So not great. And then we also have the COVID cancellation in here, which would have been another one. Yeah, man. Well, that's their bogey team. They're all time 10, 8, and 3 against them. Or the Portland has 10 wins. Spirit 3. Where do we go next from here? Let's see. The Spirit are not quite as busy as as their Audi Field neighbors. They play Louisville on May 10th, Angel City on the 18th, and Seattle Reign on the 24th. Seattle Reign, you will remember, was the game, the season starting horrible loss. Was it only 1-0? I think it was only 1-0. Pretty sure it was. Anyway, horrible game. Had XG of 0.03 or something. It was the lowest XG total since 2016 or something. However, the Reign have been pretty cold, pretty icy cold. That was 3 of their total 6 points for the entire year, that win. So we'll see how they can go against them next time. Angel City sitting below them in the table on 10 points and Racing Louisville on 8 points. So these are all teams that sit below them. Orlando Pride continues to be very, very dangerous. They have lost no times this season, nor has the current. 2 things you would not have. If you had said at the beginning of the season, before Barbara Banda was signed, and before any games were played at the new Kansas City Current Stadium, that those would be the top 2 teams, I would call you the biggest liar in the universe. There's no one was predicting that.
And that Gotham would be sitting outside of the playoffs.
Yep. And the Wave and the Reign. Bay, Houston, and Utah are no surprises. But just wild stuff. The Thorns have, again, we're talking about 18 points. Well, the top end of the league is kind of running away a little bit. 18, 17, 15, and the bottom's at 4. So there's certainly a have and have not situation developing in this league.
Yeah.
I think that'll about do it. I think we got this is a respectable time for this coverage. We hope to get a Friday show out. Well, actually, I can tell you that for sure we will, because I am doing a interview with an Atlanta United podcast whose name I can't remember at this exact moment, which makes me feel like a jerk. So I shouldn't have brought it up before I looked it up, but I'm going to do it. Their name is Spikes. No, that's not true. Shit. Well, it's the Atlanta United podcast that you'll hear if you're on our Patreon. We'll have the preview up for you on Friday. But I think that'll do it. Brian, thanks for stepping in and doing a great job as the new 2 chair. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, everybody, we will catch you if you're on Patreon, we'll catch you on Friday. Everybody else, we'll catch you next week on Monday. Back to our live show, I believe. Pretty sure. All right. Vamos.